All right, you want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And yes, I don't know why it did that again, but yes, it is showtime. And welcome once again to another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I'm your host, Joe D. McPhee, and we got a pretty interesting show here because I'm going to talk about a couple of things that's been on my mind here dealing with collecting again. And I kind of hinted at some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about on this past Thursday's comic book spectrum, but we're going to elaborate a lot more on it, plus some other things here. But nevertheless, it is time for us to go ahead and do the business end of things here. And there he is. Yep, we finally hit back at a 100. So we finally got our 100 back here. That I was about to get ready to share that, as far as the updates is concerned here, because we, after losing the channel once before, we lost a lot of our subs, and now we're back up to 100, and I'm happy about that. But we'll talk about that in a minute here, Aaron. Give me one more second here because we have to still deal with the business ends of things here, such as stupid o'clock happening 1 hour into this show here, going into our second hour. And yes, most likely we're probably going to hit our second hour. I'll explain that a little bit later. That is followed up by Last Man Standing at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then you get that respite until Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You get Nicholas Tucker and Nevermind the Furthermore. And let us not forget about this upcoming Thursday. We still got another comic book spectrum at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. And yes, we're going to be talking about Shazam all over again. Yes, we're going to revisit the Hanna-Barbera cartoon Shazam, and we got some other goodies coming up as well. So, without further ado, let me do this here. As Aaron stated here before, we finally hit 100 subscribers, and I wanted to give you guys the applause here because without you, I would never get to 100 subscribers and everything. So I hope that you still enjoy the content that I put out every Saturday here. And I hope that it continue to grow and blossom into something that's more and more beautiful. So thank you once again for allowing me to hit 100 subscribers again. And let's continue on, because why? This is going to be a rough one. We got new comic book pickups for the week, and this is a doozy. Trust me. We got a pre-recorded portion here and a couple of extras. So we're going to do the pre-recorded first, and here we go. All right. This week we have a big box of comics, so we got to get through it really, really quick here before it's time to make the run to storage here. So we're going to start out with a comic that I'm going to start collecting now called Angel and the Ape. I believe this series only ran 7 issues, but this is issue number 2. And then we got Black Panther number 14. Was able to get my hands on a Black Widow number 1. I believe this is a first print Black Widow number 1. Another copy of Gwen Stacy Spider Clothes #1, Gwen Stacy Spider Verse #3. We got Lady Death. This is issue #3 of Between Heaven and Hell. And I was actually surprised that I was able to get my hands on this one here. But this is actual Astro City #1. So we got an Astro City #1. This is another one that is an extra copy here, which is Avengers Arena #1. Then I'm still debating if I'm actually going to attempt to finish collecting this one here, because I do have issue #1 of it. But this is Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze #7. Then this one, I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. This might be on the sales track here soon. But this Batman and Robin Adventures #17. And then we got Batman Tarzan Claws of the Catwoman #1. The last two I don't know what I'm going to do here, because I'm not a Batman fan at all. But the fact that, we got Tarzan, it makes it worthwhile here. Yep, I think this is all of them here before we get into actual. Oh, we got a couple more. Yep, that starts another set here. So for those who know how I like this title, I finally got updated reading to catch up on. So I got I Like Popeye #4. And then we got Absolute Martian Manhunter 1, Absolute Green Lantern #1. And no, I'm not getting the full series. I just wanted the #1s where I could see what they're about here. Then we got Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur #1, Ironheart Bad Chemistry 1. Then we got, I believe this is Justice League Unlimited #5. Just a good Jenny Frison cover. Just like with New Gods, this is New Gods #4. Now, I thought I started New Gods all over again, but I'm not certain here. But that's a nice barter cover. And then I forgot what this one was. This one, I believe. I know it's not Spider-Woman, but I'm trying to think what it is here. Homage variant to what book is this? Oh, it is. Okay. This is a Spider-Woman #6. This is actually what it is. It is Spider-Woman #6. I know it's an homage cover to Adventures into Fear, but I wasn't certain if this was another title, because they was homaging another cover here. We got the 2 copies of #1 of Energon Universe 1. I know a lot of people like that here. This is issue #4 of the last Dazzler series that came out. I'm still trying to get the rest of them here before I could have the full run. The hip hop cover of Miss Marvel #1. This is the homage to the Lauren Smith, Lauren Hill, the Miseducation of Lauren Hill cover here. And then I forgot what this Photon cover really is here, but I got an Alex Ross Photon cover of Thunderbolt's Doomstrike. So here we go. There's Monica Rambeau, Photon, and this is like a Thunderstrike here. So it's a decent cover, just not a series that I normally would buy here. And now we're going into our bigger blocks of stuff here. We're going to start out with a series that most people know that I collect here, but it's just very rare that I get them in. So we got the reprint of the silent issue of G.I. Joe Real American Hero from Skybound. This is the reprinted version of it, or I should say facsimile. of the very first silent issue in G.I. Joe. And they also had a sketch cover version of that. So that sketch cover is going to go over to the sketch cover collection here for me to do my magic here. And then we got the kind of like the updated version of that silent issue here. This is this Image Skybound version of that. Then we got G.I. Joe number 315 towards the tail end of this series of G.I. Joe Real American Hero. 315, the black and white sketch. 316, black and white sketch. And then, in their infinite wisdom, Skybound did a whole bunch of silent missions issues here, kind of like one-shots here. So we got G.I. Joe Silent Mission Spirit. And for those who know the cartoon series, Spirit was originally the opposite of Storm Shadow. It wasn't Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes came later in the cartoon series. But in the cartoon series, it was always Storm Shadow Spirit. And we got the alternate version of that. And then now we got one of my favorite characters here from G.I. Joe, Roadblock. So Silent Missions Roadblock. Now, this one, I'm not sure how interesting this is going to be, but they did one with Duke. Duke to me wouldn't be all that interesting in a silent mission here, but it could be very, very interesting. And then we got one of the characters that I never thought that they was going to do, but they did it. And I believe his is going to be very, very interesting, and that's Beachhead. A silent mission using Beachhead. Beachhead is a very interesting character in the bigger scheme of things here. So, you know, some of the other ones that I thought that they might actually do that would be interesting, you know, silent mission using Tunnel Rat. Or silent mission using Shipwreck would have been very, very interesting, considering that their skill sets are not really quite up to par for a silent mission, but it would have been interesting to see what could have been done here. So now we get into like a lot of the reprints to the newer G.I. Joe series here. So we got the third printing die-cast cover. And here's another third printing. I believe this is the battle damaged Duke cover. And third printing regular. Third printing Baroness. And yes, Baroness is a Joe now. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people have to get used to. The Baroness is now a Joe, but it makes sense. I probably would explain it a little bit better later on if a lot of people ask the question about why is Baroness a Joe now. This is second printing of issue number 2 with Destro. Second printing with CoverGirl. Second printing with Stalker. And I forgot what this new character is here up under Cobra. She has an actual name. It just escaped me as of right now. And I think this is Mutt. That's Mutt for second printing issue number 4. And then we got issue number 5 with Baroness on the cover with the alternate cover there. And then one of the few things here, I know the cover might be, you know, a red herring here for issue number 5, but that would be an interesting issue, you know, if the Baroness and Destro fought one another on opposite sides. Now that she's a Joe, that it would have been interesting here. And then we got the Baroness, the Destro cover here. And then we got the Commander cover and Commander versus Duke for issue number 6. And the whole Destro Baroness type thing going on there for issue number 6. So that's, like I said, this is more recent type of reading that I have to get through here. And then I'm going to do the series that makes me happy first, and then I'm going to do the series that doesn't make me happy afterwards. Well, yeah, we're going to do it this way. So oh, that's right. We got 2 series just before that here. I finally got the rest. Well, actually, oh, that makes me have to find the first printing of it. But we got the second printing of Magic number 2, Magic number 3, and Magic number 4. So I could finish up what I was reading here with Magic number 1. So just to let you guys know that I'm going to catch up with that series before it's completely gone and over with. And then there's another volume of Darkwing Duck that came out. So now we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, this is still going back to the 1990s Darkwing Duck. I really hope that they start doing a Darkwing Duck series based upon the last iteration of DuckTales. That's the one that I really want here. But we got that as a whole here. And back to the series that was making me happy as I was reading it. We got, I believe this is Absolute Wonder Woman 5th printing number 1. The actual 5th printing foil. And the 5th printing number 1 regular. Then we got issue number 5. The missing variant that I didn't get the last time here. Issue 6. And all the variants, because we got, I think there's another Jenny Frison. Yep, I was right. Another Jenny Frison. The Swaby. I don't know. I wasn't too impressed with the Swaby one. And this is, I forgot who did this one. I can't see it that without turning it sideways like that. It's like multiple people worked on that one. And then we got issue number 7. This one is the Sharp Leaf. To me, it's like meh. And this one is the Jessica Fong cover. But yes, I finally got me some more Absolute Wonder Woman to read here. That they finally came in. And now, for the series that hasn't been making me happy, we got Tom King run of Wonder Woman. So we finally got issue number 19 and all of the variants, even the whole thing about the courtside with her being in like a somewhat jersey. I guess that's supposed to be haha funny, but then issue 20. And then, yep, we got the David Nakayama. Got to make sure that we get that. And they still running with the whole Batman story at that point. I still feel when they was really trying to do the whole thing about who she who she would prefer to be with as far as in a relationship. The whole thing with her and Bruce actually works better than her and Kal-El. I'm still on the. That's the only time I'm on Team Batman. To be quite honest with you guys, that's the only time I'm on Team Batman because it's just one of those things that just makes sense to me. Mainly because of the dynamic that they have between one another, and it works a lot better. It works a lot better because Batman wouldn't be like overly dependent on her as a backup. It's like his mindset would be more along the line as in, as long as I have proper preparation, I should be able to deal with most things here. And he would be more aloof and distant to try to protect her, as opposed to how Superman is like, I'm the most powerful thing out there. I know you're the second most. And it just like, the whole thing about the problems that he goes through, he would try to shield her from it instead of like with Batman. Batman would be like, look, I'm about to go over here and deal with X, Y, and Z. I need for you to stay here. It's not a part of my prep, and my plan does not include you. I guess what I'm saying is that Bruce would probably be more open than Kal-El. Now we're going to get into towards the tail ends of one of the better series that's going to get kiboshed later on here, which is Storm. It still upsets me though. So we finally got my cover A of Storm 6. We got the what's her name? Oh goodness, her name escapes me because she does like a lot of the more watercolor stuff here. Peach Momoko. That's what I was thinking here. I'm not a big fan of hers, to be quite honest, but sometimes she does covers that it just like she knocks out the box, and then there's other ones that just go like, I don't see it. The same thing with Rose Best. Rose Best has some good covers, and then others are like. Now this is the issue 6 that I already had that I bought on the side here, so that's not nothing new. Then we got issue number 7, issue number 8, and a couple of variants with her being Willing Me Owner again. So they're playing like with a lot of nostalgia. So like I said before, I get to catch up on a lot of reading here. A lot of reading. Then we got a couple more issues of Catwoman, but we got a whole bunch of variants here. That's one of the problems here, because if I go back to collecting only cover A's, my comic book bill goes down a hell of a lot. So we got issue 74 from this current run, this variant. 74, I think this is getting more like how the movie Catwoman was. And then 75. And this one I believe is an okay cover. And this one, who did this one here? This one, it's like it's almost like she's de-aged here. Oh, this is the Inyuk Lee version of Catwoman. It looks de-aged. They de-aged her quite a bit. And this is going back more towards the movie version of her outfit here. And then there's another Inyuk Lee one here. I don't know. It just, well, it has more of a manga flair to it than anything else here. And this one I could actually see as being an actual decent cover for a Catwoman story. So that's the Catwoman that I get to catch up with now. So yeah, I got a lot of reading to do. And then I finally got issue 1 and issue number 2. Issue 1 and issue 2 of Fire and Ice When Hell Freezes Over. So there's the cover A. I like this cover right here. This one is pretty nice. And then unlike the other series like Welcome to Metropolis, they did fire in the actual foil when they did ice in the foil the last time for the issue number 1. So we got both of those from David Nakayama. And then the Dotson's issue number 2. That one is interesting. I like how they did this cover to kind of contrast the difference between the two. Yeah, I believe their powers actually got switched here. And who did this cover? Reader did this cover. It's an interesting cover, but it fits. It fits. It fits for the type of story that they're telling here. So we got that. And now, as we get towards the tail end of this series here, again, which also saddens me, that a lot of the stuff that I really read are getting canceled. We finally got some more Birds of Prey. Now, 19 I actually had. 19 I actually had. I bought that by different means here, but we finally got my variants here, and we got Barda and Constantine, which is Barda, Constantine, and Cassandra. That one is an interesting one here. And I think this is whatchamacallit, what's her name? Christy Zulu, I believe. No, this is Rian Gonzalez for the more whimsy. But it's almost like Christy Zulu like cover. And then there's the issue 20. I think I have that already here. I think I have it, but I'm going to go back and like I said, reread all the stuff that I had here. Because I want to refresh my memory here. And it looks like they're dealing with the Joker now. And then here's the actual jailbreak. And I don't know, all of a sudden now they're kind of focusing more on Dinah being the leader here. And then I had to get this one because that is just a nice cover of Katana. It really is. It really is a nice cover of Katana and everything here. So that's all of the Birds of Prey that came in. And then we got other odds and end type stuff here to finish up a lot of the collecting aspects of it. And I'm still breaking it down by series because now I've been trying to start and complete a volume 3 of Outsiders. Only reason why is because I believe Outsiders volume 3 introduced Grace Choi, who is now a part of the newer incarnation of Birds of Prey. So we got issue number 7 of the Outsiders, issue 12, issue 13, 15, 18. There she is right there on the cover. And I think this is like one of those missing kids type issues. This is like one of those specialized stories that they told here. Issue 20, 23, 25, 28, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 44. So yeah, that's a good chunk. It's a good chunk of the series that series, but we're not there as far as having it complete here. I could have sworn I had more than those. Or if they mixed up. Yeah, I think they got mixed up. So we got those two series to talk about here. Oh, we got more. Oh, there they are. I wanted to talk about all of those in one fell swoop here. So now we're going to talk about things that are more piecemeal again. We got issue 37 of the kitchen sink version of The Spirit. We're getting closer to completing that one. We got another issue number 1 from that series. And then we got extras from the volume 1 of DC's run here. So we got issue 17 and 18. I know I have a complete run of the Spirit for DC for volume 1. And I believe I have just about all of it for volume 2. I think I'm missing one issue here. And then we got a signed Todd Johnson and Larry Stroman Tribe number 1 with the COA. That might have to go and get certified and authenticated. We finally got a Lois Lane 40 about old lady Lois Lane, and I believe we got another copy of 121 here of Lois Lane here. I forgot what actually happened to Lois in that one. And then we got some Jughead. So this is more the modern Jughead here. Jughead finally meets Tula Twist. Now, this is if I had to tell people like what would be a key issue and what would not be a key issue, this is a key issue. Tula Twist was known in the Archie universe to be a possible rival for Jughead when it comes to eating, especially to competition eating. So that's how I look at this book here. I'm not certain if this is her first appearance, but it is more or less of a key dealing with the fact that they kind of set that up here. That Foresight and Tula is supposed to be kind of like rivals, but she kind of likes Jughead because of his ability more so than anything else. And it would have set up kind of like a triangle if technically he does like he does like Ethel, but it would have set up a possible rivalry between her and Ethel as well. But they kind of kept it just like, they're just rivals when it comes to competitive eating. Then we got the Christmas cover here for Jughead. And then we got the older stuff that I'm more into here, which is 182 and 279. And what else we got here? Okay, that was a one-off. A couple more one-offs. Okay, we'll just take the whole block here. We'll take the whole block because that will make it easier. We got Priority White Heat number 2. This is kind of like one of those spy epics that is associated with the creators of Film Force's AC Comics. I believe I'm only one issue away from completing that. I believe I'm just missing issue number 3 now. Then we're still working on volume 1 of New Mutants here. This is supposed to be the second appearance of Thunderbird, the Bill Sienkiewicz cover, I believe, which is issue number 17. Then we got issue number 19. This is the first Demon Bear and Bill Sienkiewicz work here. And that was the one thing that I think threw a lot of people off of New Mutants here, because a lot of the artwork, at least a lot of the cover work by Bill Sienkiewicz, a lot of people didn't like it in the very beginning because he was going more or less abstract sci-fi than anything else here. But there it is, number 19. And then we got G.I. Joe issue number 24. This was one of the ones that I was missing in the early portions of the run here. And then we got a couple of Film 5, which eventually became F5 later on here. So we got from Entity Comics, Film 5, number 1. This is the C cover. And then this is F5. This is one of the fandom exclusives here. I forgot how they have it listed in CLZ, but this is dealing with the same thing here. And then this is when Image took over and they just called it F5. And then now I'm getting in, trying to finish up my FF run, or I think the FF being Fantastic Force instead of Fantastic Four. So we got the issue number 1 from volume 2 of FF, issue 2, the issue number 5 variant, issue 8, issue 10, and issue 11 of FF. And then we got issue number 5 of Angela, Queen of Hell. I'm still looking for the rest of that one. And then I'm finally getting closer and closer to filling in the rest of volume 1 of Glory. We're almost there with finishing up that tail end. And then the $1 million question here. This is the $1 million question. If anybody has a copy of Glory issue number 16, you got a hell of a lot of money. A hell of a lot of money. I would, if you could guess why you would have a hell of a lot of money, I applaud you. I know why, but I might tell you later if you ask. So we got issue number 20, 21, 23, and yes, they changed. They changed over the graphics for the title here. So it went for 21, 20, 22, I believe. They changed the graphics and stuff over. So 23, and that was all part of the same run here. 25, 26, and 29. I believe it ran like 30 something issues here. So the tail end of the series was the part that I was missing, because they are very, very short run for volume 1. And I believe it was even more of a short run after they went into volume 2 and everything here. So now I got extra copies of this now. So we got Bill Sienkiewicz's cover of Dazzler 27. And then we got Dazzler in her new costume here for issue 38. We ended up getting Spider-Gwen number 2 for that series. And then I got some issues of Thing from volume 2. So this is Thing issue 1 from volume 2. Issue number 2, volume 2, and issue number 3, volume 2. I believe there's only 1 or 2 more issues in that series here. I'm just going off the top of my head here. And we got the another copy of the iconic cover of 72 from volume 2. I'm not sorry if I'm going to clean this one up or the other one up and send it in, because I need to have at least one of these graded. I'm getting closer to having this in a full run here. We're finally getting towards the tail end of my hunt for DC bombshells. So we got issue 22, 30, and 31. And then this big bad boy pack, I'm going to have to find some more bags and boards, but this little pack here helps me get closer to completing Bombshells United, starting with issue number 1, issue number 2, issue number 3, issue number 4, issue 5, issue 6, issue 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And yes, this series is definitely going to storage. I will have to get them bagged and boarded and read them at a different date. But these are have to get stored like right now, right now, because I got other stuff, newer stuff to read to get back in my brain as far as a data being kind of like more or less like a database of women-led comic book titles that I have read or know about and stuff to that magnitude. So there we have it. That is new comic book pickups for this week here. I know this has been a long pre-recorded session here. That still does not preclude anything that comes in between now and by the time the actual show is started here. But for right now, I'm going to send it back to the studio for we can continue our conversation. And there you go. That was new comic book pickups for the week, minus these couple books that I have sitting in front of me. Because as I stated before, it always when I do those pre-recordings, it does not include anything that comes in during the day. So today, that came in after I did the recording here, we got Catwoman When in Rome #6. This was the last one of that series that I was missing here. So now I have the very end of that series. We got some Superboy here, Superboy 204 with the Legion of Superheroes and Superboy 209. And then I got a later copy of Challengers of the Unknown from the very first series here, and that's issue, I believe, 87. So that is everything that came through this week here. And I think those who was chatting with me while the pre-recorded stuff was there, I see that Victoria arrived here talking about, she liked the Batman stories and everything. Aaron and I was talking back and forth here, and I told Aaron, it's like he asked, and I'm going to bring up this question. It's like, where do you go for most of your pickups? Most of the stuff that I get for comic book pickups, it's usually either through like claim sales or through places out and about here. Even though there's a lot of comic book stores here in Chicago, I still get the majority of my books outside of the state. It's weird. It's weird in that aspect here. And, maybe I should add that to the actual gist of the topic of tonight's topic about a collector's turmoil, because it gets to the point where I think sometimes we make the hobby of collecting comics a little bit more difficult than what it is. It shouldn't have to get to the point where I have to actually, do claim sales from different places across this country just to find books at a reasonable price and everything here, or that specializes in what I actually read. It's really kind of messed up, but we're going to kind of table that for a little bit here, because we have to do updates and everything here. We already talked about hitting 100 subscribers. I'm happy about that here, but to my detriment here, I didn't work on anything comic book related as far as creating new books here. So it's kind of like a shame on me type deal, because with my 9 to 5 and everything, plus having, I think I had a evaluation, my annual evaluation this week, plus a couple other things that actually happened. It was just so much stuff going on where my mind is not really focused in on finishing up the last 2 pages of the one story for Legends of the Giantess Slayer. Wasn't focused on finishing up Primetime Saturday Night #6 or anything to that magnitude here. So it really is one of those things that, life do take over when you're on the more creative path here. And when life takes over, it's like you have to have that balance here. So if you can't, get to the point where you can create something or work on something that you're creating, try not to get overly frustrated about it, but at the same time, don't take it as a vacation either. It's like, take the time, to kind of recuperate, get things back in order before you can sit back down at the table and get to work. So, this past week was one of those kind of weeks where I couldn't get back to the creative table to sit down and do more renders, or to work on some scripts or anything to that magnitude. Just one thing after another, after another, after another. However, this upcoming week is going to be different because why? We got Veterans Day, and we got some other things going on this week where I probably will have more time to work on those things here. So with that in mind, now we're going to get into the topic. Why did I choose a collector's turmoil? Well, you guys know how I am. I actually sit here from time to time. I look at other content creators and what they're looking at, what they're talking about, and everything. And I get to the point where I listen to what they got to say, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not like you. I don't see that as being an issue or being a problem until I think about it in a different light here. And I always state, a lot of times what I think about may be wrong for you, but it is not uncommon for me to think about these things and be like, why is this a major thing as a whole, as far as, the influencing side of things here? And one of the things that came up here is, well, it's a couple of videos that talked about, that touched a little bit about it. But one of the things that really, grind my gears this week was the concept, and I talked about this on Comic Spectrum. It's like the concept of why people making a big deal out of newsstand copies. And up here, it's like, unless you know the history of the newsstand, you wouldn't go goo goo gaga for a lot of newsstand copies here. And you have to, and like I say, you have to understand the history. Newsstand copies were around before a direct. So when people are up here, it's like, oh, I need to get a newsstand copy of such and such, such and such. The way that I look at it is like, okay, if you got a newsstand copy of this issue, you better be certain that it was part of the tail end of newsstands for it to be as valuable. And it's like, and I just don't get how people were just like, newsstands are, are the variants that you need to look for. It's like, no, know your history. Because I think prior to like the early 70s, everything was newsstand. Everything was newsstand per se. It wasn't until like the late 60s, early 70s that there was a separation when the direct market was started to come into play in like the late 60s, early 70s. Then you have to start thinking about it, because the way I'm looking at it is like, why are a lot of people treating direct editions or the direct market copies as, oh, they're passe now, or if during the time of modern comics, if you could get the newsstand one, it's so much more valuable. And then they try to apply that logic to some of the books in like the tail end of the Silver Age and Bronze. I was like, if you try to do that for Bronze, you're kind of looking at it the wrong way, because if you're going to follow the logic based upon the number of copies produced for that particular title, Bronze Age and Silver Age, you want to have more so the direct copy, because the direct edition were printed a lot fewer, because the newsstand was still the main, sticking point of buying your comics. There wasn't a lot of comic book stores that were formed on the early stages of the direct market. And when we talk about the direct market, back then, they were talking about subscriptions. You bought a subscriptions directly from the publisher more so than anything else. So those direct copies were, few and far between. It wasn't until the advent of a lot of comic book stores coming into like the mid 70s when they really started to pick up. that we had a influx of more direct copies going to these comic book shops. The newsstand were the common books here. So you have to look at the era in which your title that you're collecting comes in. You just cannot apply one type of logic across the board. And that would really, grind my gears about this. It's like, oh, we just got to get the newsstand copy of everything. It's like, okay. And I think what really sent me over the top here, and I'm glad that he brought this up, because the way that he was looking at it as far as evaluating the price of a book, if you follow Bryce Comics, I believe, got the classic Todd McFarlane Batman cover. And you guys know which one I'm talking about, the one that everybody goes goo goo gaga over. And he was able to get a 9.8 slab, which was a newsstand edition of that book. And he didn't have any idea how to price it, because it hasn't been any sales for any equivalent book at a 9.8 for that book. And that started the whole process. And then I watched another video that was talking about, how everything, how we have to, really pay attention to newsstand editions. I was like, well, not necessarily. Because by the time we got to tail in the 1980s and early 90s, newsstands were dying. I understand that they were small in print. They were less printed than the direct edition, because, you had comic book stores all over the place by that time, or at least enough comic book dealers where they were buying enough copies to kind of mitigate the numbers, the lack of numbers that was being sent to newsstands or to drugstores and stuff to that magnitude up under their regular newsstands and magazines. So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at how he was trying to determine the value of that book. And I was like, okay, if you're going to do apples to apples, and he was comparing it to a book that came out around the same time. So it's like, since there's nothing on the census, there was nothing on GPA, there was nothing on eBay or anywhere else that had a direct sale of a 9.8, he compared it to Amazing Spider-Man 300, which came out that same month. Now, this is where I kind of get into the nitpickiness here, because I would have been very, very nitpicky, because it seems like it's not really apples to apples, and it might not even be close unless you know distribution numbers. If you knew that issue of Batman had the same number of copies as Amazing Spider-Man 300 that actually was released, yeah, I can see that comparison. I can see why you would use that as a guide, especially if it's similar as far as newsstand to newsstand. A lot of it, to me, when you get into that investment aspect of it, it makes sense to try to find something that's equivalent. But even more so, and this is where, you guys could, message or comment later, especially if you're watching it on the replay. In a way, when you have a book like that never had a point of sale here, you're really more or less at the mercy of the buyer at that point. How much is somebody willing to pay for that 9.8? I mean, there was, points to gather as far as having the 9.4 and 9.6 of that issue already being pre-marked. But the thing about it, that 9.8 is one of those more sought after things, and everybody wants to get a 9.8 of a slab. It's a no-brainer at that point. But even if you did use the comparison with Amazing Spider-Man 300, there's still no guarantee that you're pricing it up as such for it to move. You're still going to be at the mercy of the person who really wants to buy it. Sometimes they might want to give you more, And a lot of times they're going to try to get a little bit less, try to get you to sell it to them a little bit less here. But I don't see it as what he did in that video as the die hard fast rule. It's one of those things that you got to roll the dice on. But as a seller, and I'm not a very big seller. I might do claim sales here and there. I might do a whatnot show here and there for the odds and end books that I get, that I want to sell and get rid of. And even when I do the odds and end books, I do, usually like $1 to $5. I think only like the golden age books that I might not golden age, silver age books that I might end up selling might actually get into like the $20 range. But I'm not trying to price gouge people out of books. But that's kind of like the thing that really kind of like grind my gears, because it was a newsstand, and it was like, well, that should make it three times what it would have been worth for the direct. And I was like, yes and no, because it's not a hard fast rule. It should be a rule of thumb for anything that was between like the end of the tail end of the 80s and the books from the 1990s, when the newsstand completely got cut off. Yeah, that should be a good rule of thumb. But a newsstand book from like the Bronze Age, no. If anything, that 3x rule should apply more towards direct edition at that point. But people don't think that way. People don't see the problem in that, and people don't understand the aspect of having that as a bona fide rule across the board, as opposed to looking at it from the actual era of where the book resides at. Anything at the very beginning of direct market to maybe like 1980, I don't see that 3x rule applying, because they were not printing that many direct editions like people think. Everything was still newsstand. The greater majority was newsstand. And by the time that they were doing half and half, it still kind of shoots you in the foot as far as looking at it, as far as demand, as far as rarity. Newsstands were not rare yet. When they became rare is when they were slowly phasing out newsstands. And when I say slowly phasing out newsstands, I mean literally newsstands were physically closing down. Grocery stores and drugstores were not picking up those extra comics. They were not, going through the regular distribution route to pick up that newsstand edition anymore. So there was being fewer and fewer printed in the 80s, going into the 90s. And by the time I think we get to like 98, 99, they were pretty much gone all the way. Gone by the way of the dodo here. And let's see, Aaron is saying here, I guess the thought is that back in the day, people took care of their directs and not their newsstands. Maybe, but again, using the logic that they're using for newsstands for those that from 1980 on to the end of the newsstands, it's based upon the number of copies that were printed. If that's the case, there were fewer direct market comics printed prior to 1980. So if you have, it's like, people keep up with the direct market ones. Okay, fine. I don't think, I'm trying to find one. I don't think I have anything really handy that is not modern here, because I just put up the last couple of books that were not modern, up minus these the couple of Bronze Age stuff here. See, 20 center and 25 center, but even it's like even then I can't tell. With DC, I can't tell what was newsstand and what is well, actually I can because of the barcode. These don't have barcodes. Like this one here, this 35 center. This 35 center would probably be a newsstand. This is a newsstand here. But this is a 35 center, which probably puts it around in late 70s, early 80s at 35 cents. But with Marvel, I know for a fact it's like when you had like the diamonds to determine that that was a direct edition here. I don't think people paid attention to that diamond or the M logo or certain things that was done back in the 70s and early 80s. I don't think people really paid that close of attention to it because it really wasn't. It wasn't until Marvel started using that UPC box and was putting graphics there to make the determination of whether that was a direct or a newsstand. And by that time, the newsstands were fading away. And that was kind of like the key thing that I was really trying to get people to understand here. That designation between the two was very vague back in the day. You might up here thinking, "Oh, I ended up getting, getting like this old Bronze Age book, and it's the direct edition." And it's like you don't realize that direct edition might be a little bit rarer than that newsstand. So I just don't know. I mean, maybe you do have a point. Maybe the newsstands back then, maybe the newsstands that was collected back then were not kept up as well. But that would go back to the owner as opposed to the direct, those who bought the direct edition from one lucky ones, either from the comic book store. And then here's the other thing. Those who were buying subscriptions, they had the subscription tree. So a lot of times they can't get a 9.8 of that. So it's a lot of factors that plays into that role as far as why, anything before 1980, we should be thinking, get the direct edition because it was rarer in that aspect here. Yeah, people like their high grade newsstands for this reason. And I don't disagree. It's like people like high grade newsstands, but newsstands was first. Direct editions was the second. What came second. So newsstand first, going all the way back to when comics were being released, back in the day in the 20s and 30s and everything. It was all newsstand. There was no such thing as direct marketing until maybe like the tail end of the 1960s. Just saying. We don't have this problem with golden age books. We started having this problem tail end of silver because the direct market was really slowly becoming, buy the books directly from Marvel, buy the books directly from DC. Now we got comic book stores opening up, coming into the 70s. And now you got all these distribution chains opening up to these so-called comic book stores that are now slowly gathering in and collecting all the books that other people have for resale. It's a lot of factors that play into the logic that I'm presenting here today. I'm not saying don't collect newsstands. Collect what you want. But I'm also trying to get people to understand that search for that 9.8 newsstand may not be as fruitful when you really look at history. And I think that's the real problem that I have with collectors nowadays. They're not looking at the history. And when you truly think about it, if you're a golden age collector, the newsstand question does not come into play. It does not. It makes no sense to them. It only makes sense to those who are more along the lines that are collecting mostly Bronze Age, Copper Age, and modern. And it's one of those, it's weird. It's very, very weird in that aspect. But let me see what else you're saying here, Aaron. It's like, yeah, the direct for Marvel didn't happen until the late 70s. Yep. Because I believe DC was the one that first started it, was thinking about doing it way earlier here. Yeah, I don't really care. Like my low run directs from like the 1970s and high grade newsstands from the 90s and up. Yeah, but that's the thing. And because we are in, and you know how I talked about this, because we're in the age of influencers, when they talk about, oh, I got a high grade newsstand copy of it, they're not laying out the history of why that high grade newsstand is really worth the money that it is. People are just going to be up here, oh, it's a newsstand copy of it. It's like, yeah, but here's the problem. Let's look at it when it came out. If it's a high grade newsstand copy that came out in the early 70s, you got the standard edition. If you got the direct one from the 1970s, you got the rare one. They don't talk about that. They're treating all the newsstands as one contiguous thing, as if newsstands were the variant. Newsstands were never the variant. They have been the de facto standard until they were ended. That's where knowing history and the roots of things come into play, and where you should not be I shouldn't even use the word swindle, talked out of making a good purchase for a direct edition when it's not, when looking for that newsstand is really not needed. I'm just saying. Granted, if you're in that mode of investing, you want to probably have to go for that newsstand, but you have to be careful. And this is why I feel that it's even now in this day and age, when it comes to comic book collecting, there's too much advice out there without clarification. Everybody has different needs and desires with their collection, as opposed to some of us older people here. There's a lot of people that are collecting for art now. I get it. That what makes me kind of still like what's going on in the modern age. In the modern age, if it wasn't for the artwork, I would be like some of these other people. It's like the art form is dying because the storytelling is not there. But I understand why people collect the art. I see why people only say, I like this cover or I like the artwork inside of it. It's cool. I get it. I agree. It's like I'm not into comic book influencing anyway. But you got a lot of the younger people that are into this. That will go out there and buy and will pay a couple $100 for things like, Nice House on the Lake at an absurd price, and not wait for the price to come back down because of the thing about popularity. When something first come out, as it gets more and more popular, the price goes up. But as the demand for it goes down, the price also goes down. So you have to wait until not everybody and their grandmother is looking for those books. If you didn't catch it on the very first time when it first comes out, you have to wait until that popularity dies down. And all these all these people who do investing, I look at their stuff, it's like, yeah, you're treating it like the stock market, right? Guess what? Part of doing that type of collecting, you have to know when to get in and know when to get out. And what's the best way to learn how to get in and get out? Buy something when it first comes out and watch it over time. That way, when you're ready to get to that second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 100, 200, 5,000th title, you're not going to get surprised when you buy it here, buy it midway at its highest popularity, and then all of a sudden the ball falls out of it. There's no surprise there. There's no surprise there, especially if you're playing to resell. If you're playing a resale, that should be an automatic. This is why I don't follow, all of these different people who want to speculate on whether something has been, assigned, it has been bought up and assigned to, to have like a movie or a TV series and everything. I look at things, if you really want to invest, it's like, look at where the story is going. Look at the popularity. Look at the fan base that's being built for it. That's something that's a lot harder to do speculation on. It's like looking at the fan base here. You can't predict accurately whether or not a TV series is going to make the book jump in value, because why? TV watchers are not comic book readers. Comic book readers are comic book readers, period. There may be some crossover where people who might like the TV series may try to read the books, but the likelihood of that is very low. And people are still being gullible, being very gullible, thinking that the medium cross over equally. And what I mean by the medium cross over equally, us comic book readers would go and watch the TV series of our beloved comic book characters and not have a second thought about it. But TV watchers who may like the TV series are not going to always come to the comic book. They're not always going to come to any type of source material. They like what they like. If they love TV, they're going to watch TV. If they love movies, they're going to watch movies. They're not always going to come back to the source. And a lot of these speculators have to understand that. The reason why they speculate based upon TV series and movies is mainly because of their own excitement to see the book being highlighted in that aspect, and hoping, and I'm saying this with emphasis, they're hoping that fellow collectors like them increase the demand. Demand is not coming from anywhere else. It's not coming from those who are moviegoers. It's not coming from those who may love the television show. They're trying to rally the troops like themselves to pay the extra money because of not willing to wait. That's pretty much it is in a nutshell. I've been saying that for the longest here, but I'm not going to knock other people's hopes and dreams and the reason why they speculated. But it's very rare that I hear somebody that says, oh, I'm a fan of the TV series first, and now I want to come back and collect the boys. Oh, I was a fan of the Walking Dead TV series. Now I'm going to come back over to the comics. You always hear it's like, oh, I'm a fan of the comics, so therefore I'm going to watch the TV series. You always hear that, but it's very rarely the other way around. And the reason being is because people who enjoy the medium in which their entertainment comes in expect a certain way each and every time. So if you're accustomed to television, you want to expect it to be presented to you in that fashion each and every time. You're not going to necessarily want to jump over to actual illustrated form and reading all the time. There is some people that will make that jump. And then there's other people that are going to be like, no, just give me a TV show or just give me the movie. I could digest this stuff in 2.5 hour chunks in a movie, or 30 minutes to an hour episode on television. And then you run into the other problem. Only reason I'm holding up this challengers here is because I needed something to say the issue format. This comes out once a month. We also in a day and age where people binge. This is one of the reasons why there's been such more of an uptick when it comes to trade paperbacks and collectives. People want everything at one time. Unless you come up in, unless you came up in a day and age like I have, where everything was not always readily available. This format works for us. It does not necessarily work for people nowadays. So it's really weird in that aspect here. Storytelling is still good in modern comics. Is more decompressed. See, in a way, after reading that statement, I'm almost at the whole thing about Phoenix Wright and contradiction. Storytelling cannot be good if the continuity is not as important. What good is lore if lore is not expanded upon? There has to be some aspect of the original continuity in it to make it be embellished. When you pretty much say something never happened and correct it mid course, that's a problem in the actual storytelling. And I'm not saying that storytelling in the modern comics is bad, but you hit the nail on the head with the last part of that statement about continuity. When continuity doesn't matter anymore, the storytelling cannot be great anymore. It's just more along the lines like this is a version of what could have been. It's like not even I can't even say it's like a what if or else worlds. It's just more along the lines like you could really use that story and put any character in those lead positions and still have a good story. It wouldn't be a Superman story or a Catwoman story or a Fantastic Four story, because it becomes cookie cutter in that aspect, because continuity doesn't matter. It's messed up when you look at it in that aspect here. This is why I enjoy older comics more. And I enjoy mostly comics that tries its best to stay in continuity. It's also one of the reasons why I struggle with Tom King's Wonder Woman, because again, he changed the lore, he changed continuity, but at the same time, he's trying to keep the same spirit, but yet trying to make it more testosterone feel that doesn't work for a character like Wonder Woman. I mean, it just a lot of stuff to me just falls flat. But that's just me here. Always remember how expensive Thanos comics were for a short while. Yeah, Thanos comics going to be that way now. All of a sudden, Doom comics are being that way because everybody's looking forward to Doomsday. And again, I stated this before. It's not the moviegoers that's raising the prices of all Doom books and everything. It's fellow comic book collectors. Because why? The movie-going crowd has no frame of reference. And plus, comic books is not the medium that they enjoy their entertainment. So until the movie comes out, they won't care. After the movie comes out, guess what? They're priced out of the comics if they really wanted to partake in it. And why? Because you have comic book collectors that was trying to get on the bandwagon before the demand got great. Again, fearing what could be instead of looking at what it really is. I mean, there's no other way for me to say it here. I could come to this conclusion: the more comic books that are being printed over the years, the less expensive back issues will become. People only have so much space in their houses to collect. That is true. But here's the other thing here. If that was the actual mindset here, Why isn't there a lot of people that's collecting these books and everything digitally? Those devices that we look at things digitally do fail. The medium in which we contain a lot of our digital stuff does have a shelf life. So do this. This does have a shelf life here, but there's means and methods that we could use to protect it for a lot longer than digital media. But you're right. There's only so much space that we can have here to collect that type of stuff. And there's also collected volumes. So you could cut down on the clutter by buying omnibuses and get to have the same effect here. You know, people don't have to be gluttons like you and I. I have a storage area that I'm still trying to sort through comics and everything. And you showed your collection not too long ago on video, and it's a sizable collection. There's only so much space that we could use to put away comics. But yet at the same time, the move towards digital have failed. And it makes you kind of wonder why. Because if the move to digital would save a lot of people's space and time and effort, how come people are not partaking in it as such in the same degree, especially for back issues? Just saying. I just believe that it's more or less the medium. This is too easy for people to lose access to the digital copy than it is to this. This could get damaged and still, you can still pick it up and read whatever is left and everything and still get some enjoyment out of it. If a digital file gets corrupt, guess what? You probably either have to rebuy it, go to whatever platform if it's still available, and figure out what they have to do to get it repaired and everything. It's a lot more hassle. But I'm not trying to, talk apples and oranges at this point here and go off the reservation here, but I get the point. When it comes to physical books, there's only so much space that we do have. Yeah, it's the only way. It's like the only way comics will be worth a lot in the future is if the kids of the future collect. If not, all the fuss is worth. If all the fuss worth it is not worth anything. Ha. See, now you want to make me go on a soapbox. But that's a good point. That's a good point. But the soapbox that I'm going to go on, define the worth. Define worth here. And this is coming by the soapbox that I'm going to go on is about the difference between preservation and fiduciary gain. The worth of preserving the art form and being in a position to give it to another person who is willing to take up the mantle to preserve the art form and to preserve the history and to preserve the actual entertainment from it has a different value than fiduciary. You are absolutely right. Fiduciary, it means nothing. Zero. If kids and stuff if kids and stuff don't collect it and everything and keep whatever fiduciary value that it is for collecting. And this is why, treating it as a collectible item is not the way to go. If there are no collectors of it, the fiduciary value of it goes to zero. But if you go the preservation route, as far as the literary and entertainment value from it, it has worth later on in life. This is why we still have libraries. This is why people worry about first edition, second edition, third edition. In our case, with comic books, third printing, fourth printing, fifth printing. there's always going to be some type of worth to it. But that's the reason why I don't rebuke investors, because they do help keep the hobby around as far as the seeing of the collectability of it. But there's very few people like you and I here, Aaron, that sees the bigger worth as far as the entertainment, the history, and the art form itself, and keeping that value. So the word, when you really use the word worth, you have to kind of put an asterisk by it and define what worth you're really going after. And if you're always talking about fiduciary as far as financial gain, you are absolutely right. Without having fan bases, the stuff goes away. To be quite honest, if it wasn't for the Church of Batman, DC probably would have been under by now, because a lot of their other titles are just not making as much bank as the 15 billion Batman titles that there are out there. Why? Because the Batman fan base is still growing. You don't have that for Superman anymore. You barely have that for Wonder Woman. You barely have that for a lot of the titles. Heck, I'm even still waiting for fan base for Challengers of the Unknown to come back. But it is what it is. But I get it. The worth of a book is really depending upon how you define worth. Yeah. So you understand what I'm saying. So you really understanding what I'm saying here. That's why I say I really don't want to get on a soapbox, and I don't really want to argue about fiduciary versus historical and all the other values that could be out there as far as worth is concerned. Yeah, in that regards to collecting, I collect stuff that make me happy. And again, you putting your own worth to it. And that's the key thing here. And that's one of the reasons why, everybody's up here is like, oh yeah, Beanie Babies are not going to make you a millionaire. It's like, it can, but you have to understand where the millions of dollars are going to come from. It's not going to come from fiduciary. You're not going to buy all these Beanie Babies and hope to resell it for like $1 million. You want to know why? Because you're going to have to take a collector who is a millionaire to pay you $1 million to do it. And those are going to be few and far between. And like I said, it could lead you into a pipe dream that never comes true. But if you collect Beanie Babies and say, hey, I collected all these Beanie Babies to show somebody in like 2135 that this craze actually happens. Look at the unique designs. This is how they used to be made. This is why people collect them and everything, and have gallery displays and everything to that magnitude with every last Beanie Baby that was ever made. That has historical worth. That has worth as far as entertainment value. That has worth in every other factor that will educate people. Maybe that is worthwhile. Maybe that's the way you make your $1 million. But you have to put that worth on it. Like you said, you put the worth into it to say, this is what makes me happy. Just like how people collect all these different collector's glasses, like people who have all these collector's glasses of the Muppets, or people who have all these, match boxes from all these different hotels and bars and stuff. It makes them happy, but it also shows you history. And when people start valuing history again, you'll see the end result of the worth. That's why preservation is so much valuable than quick turnaround for fiduciary. And I'm not going to knock those that does it, does the quick flip. Everybody needs money. If you're good at selling, you're good at selling. It is what it is. Now, if I attain my goal with the Wonder Woman, my whole aspect of collecting will change at that point, because now I have to make a decision. Do I go after everything that's Sensation Comics from Volume 1? And if I do that to get like the full enchilada as far as the character Wonder Woman is concerned, then that changes the aspect of why I'm doing what I'm doing here. And after talking to collectors that have a lot of stuff from the Golden Age and the age before Golden, and they're sitting on books that, technically, if we go by investor standards, that's, collections that's well into the millions of dollars by investor pricing. They feel the same way that you and I feel here, Aaron. They're not really trying to do this mainly to make money anymore. This is the stuff that they grew up with. They see the historical significance of it. They're not trying to price gouge anybody, but they know it's like they got to do something, to them before they die. Some people will wait and let wait until everything and send it over to Heritage Auction to have their family get whatever somebody is willing to pay for it. I actually moderate for one guy on Whatnot who is trying to sell as much as his collection before he passed to other collectors to help them fill out their own collection, and that way he doesn't leave his wife the burden of those comics. He already has it set up where as soon as he passes, they're going to Heritage. But before they're going to Heritage, he's trying to sell off as much of it as possible to kind of keep things at an even kill, because not everybody could afford auction prices over there at Heritage. Yeah, another move. After the move, Superman might make a comeback depending on if they keep it up. Superman might make another comeback if there is a actual fan base for Superman. The current fan base for Superman is older guys. And this is the key thing here. You kind of hit it on the nail when it comes to younger people. I don't see the younger set becoming comic book fans like how you and I have. Mainly because they're not being introduced into this hobby in the same manner that you and I were. You and I were introduced into comics based upon storytelling and story. We had a lot more patience to wait, a month at a time to get the next issue. This generation has everything that's pretty much there at their fingertips. So having a form of entertainment that takes a month in between issue to issue, and then on top of that, each issue is getting less and less. And when I say each issue is getting less and less, it's like the average modern comic book for Marvel and DC is barely 16 pages now. We grew up in a day and age where it was like 28, 32. We had 80-page giants, 100-page giants. We had more content given to us in that 1 month wait. Now they're barely getting little to nothing. So for the change to happen here is that we have to figure out a way to get younger people into the medium to the point where they become fans of the medium as well as the franchise. I believe that you could get younger kids to be Superman fans, but the way that they're going to be Superman fans is either going to be through television, through cartoons, through movies and everything. But through comics, we have to stoke that love for the medium. And with all of this YouTube content up here talking about, oh, you can make money in comics, or This comic book could be worth X, Y, and Z if you get a 9/8 version of it. It's not really stoking the love for the storytelling. It's not really stoking the love for the art that's in each page. It's not stoking the love of how the story is being told by the technique art wise. These are the types of things that need to be broken down in YouTube videos, like the lives that I'm doing, the lives that a couple other creators are doing. We need to stoke that love for characters and everything in that aspect here. Everything shouldn't be fiduciary or influencing and all this other stuff. If you like something, tell people why you like it. If you don't like it, why waste your time? Why waste your time as to be negative? And I always say it, why waste your time, because it's like it's your prerogative. It's like if it gets the clicks, it gets the clicks. And that tells me if you're doing it for the clicks, that you're doing that more so for something else other than the love of books. Oh, is that movie? Yeah. After the movie is out, Superman might make a comeback. But yeah, but even with that, like I said before, the moviegoer does not make a comic book reader. We as comic book readers of Superman will go see the movie, and we will go and watch the movie. It doesn't make us movie goers all the time, but it'll make us go see a movie because of our like and fandom for the character, and the fact that we are coming from the source material. We've been reading the source material to go see what they're trying to do on this medium over here called cinema. But that's the key thing here. It's understanding history. You know, one of the things that I shouldn't even use that as an example, because I was about to get ready to use Wonder Woman 1984. That fell off the rails because they went away from source material. What made the first Wonder Woman movie good and the second one bad is the fact that even though they didn't follow everything from the source material, it was still close enough where people didn't mind that it was World War One and not World War II. It didn't matter about the battlefield. It did not matter about how the Greek god of war was a prime minister and was duping everybody into it. It felt like an old school Marston storytelling to a greater degree of how everything went down. The second movie moved the goalpost too far too fast. We went from World War One to 1984, skipping all those other decades as far as what was going on with Diana all the way up to that point. And then the movie started off with a great life lesson scene with her being a child, which she forgot in modern times. Not to mention all the cringiness and all the other plot holes and stuff that happened in the second movie. Saying all that to say, those who watched the first Wonder Woman movie did not come over to the comic book source material to read it. They enjoyed what they saw. At best, what they saw in the movies, they came over to the cartoons and stuff and was clamoring for more. They didn't come back to the comic books, because if that was the case, comic book sales would have been dramatically up, because the first movie was a well done movie. We didn't see that long lived uptick in new readers. At best, it was like while the movie's out, people got interested. Once the movie went away, fell off, dramatic drop off. Those who have remained fans stayed kind of flat. But when it comes to new fans, it's like, oh, here comes the new fans. We got a new fan base, and then fall back down. Same thing for this last Superman movie, the one that had crypto up in it. Did it spawn new readers of Superman? Yeah, probably so. But as soon as the movie went away, it didn't make lifelong readers of Superman. However, more and more people probably was looking for more Superman stuff on television. Heck, they might even went back to go watch the old Donner films. Because why? Movie fans are going to watch movies. That's what they do. That's what they consume. But speculating on that type of stuff makes no sense anymore. Once you understand that moviegoers are going to be moviegoers, they're going to consume the cinema more so than a comic book. Comic book readers do not always have the vehicle to convert a moviegoer into a comic book reader. All because the two mediums are too different. Same thing with television. It's going to be, I want to say it's hard pressed to get somebody who loves Walking Dead to read a Walking Dead comic book, but to make them a lifetime reader of comics from Walking Dead is a little bit harder of a task because the mediums are different. You can always get people to look at the source material, but it's hard to get them to become lifelong readers as a result of it. If they like Walking Dead, they might pick up a few Walking Dead issues here and there, and that would be it. Like I said, as long as it's popular, it picks up. As soon as it stops being popular, it drops right back off. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible to bring new people in. You just have to make certain that you stay positive as far as what you tell new people, because the whole goal is to make new readers and to make that extra spot at the table that always welcomes them in. And to always, to make something that feels like they're always welcome is no pressure, no stress. Let them enjoy it. Let them find their pace and enjoyment for it. And I truly feel that with the way that the investing side of comics has been more towards the forefront, a lot of people get scared off, especially if they're not enjoying the content. If they're not enjoying the content, you kind of lose them. Hopefully, the kids of the future will return on by enough of the movies to collect comics. I don't see it. Here's the reason why I don't see it. And I'm just following the logic. Here. And this is where I go into the whole thing about manga and anime. Today's kids gravitate more towards anime and movies now. So as they consume more anime, the manga books become a lot more accessible. Why? Because the contents of the manga is usually represented in the animated form in anime and whatever movies that they do create out of it. However, for American comics, the stuff that Marvel Studios is doing right now in the movies are not represented in the comics. There are two separate, complete stories. That's problem number one. There is no respect for source material in American movies and American comics. For anime and movies based upon anime, the manga series reflect everything that happens in those movies. And there's more of a direct tie here. However, this is the other thing that, like I said, knowing history. Even going back to the Donner Superman #1, there has been movie adaptations of it, but the actual comics predates that movie so much that they had to create a movie that encompassed what was there prior to the 1970s dealing with the Superman franchise and try to condense that down to 2 hours. A lot of stuff couldn't make it, and they have to make it entertaining and enjoyable for those who have not read the source material. That's a hard thing to do. Now, how do we make it where the comic books is reflected in the movies, like how it is with between manga, anime, and anime and the OVAs and other movies that come from manga and anime? The comic books have to be written in such a way where the translation don't have to be a lot of translation to get movie people to like it. The comic books have to be written in such a way where TV people will like it. And there is this difference in storytelling between manga and American comics too. And understanding those aspects and trying to figure out what is the best way to do that between the source material of comics and movies and television, it's really not that hard, but it's just more along the lines that those who control the movie studios and the TV studios treat comics as a kid's form instead of an art form by itself. You could use the same logic with novels. The Dune series. And when I say Dune, I'm talking about Dune. We had so many different movies of those novels, but yet the true interpretation of those novels has never been truly all the way represented in those movies. There have been some things that have been changed, altered, and some other aspects of it, all because the studios do not respect everything that's in the source material. And that's really the bigger problem when it comes to the problem that I brought up about how come moviegoers do not read comics. How does the moviegoer does not read the source material from the novel? But yet those who have read the novels and those who have read the comic books go see the movie and have so many different gripes about what they left out based upon the source material. That was one of the reasons why, and I hate to say it, that's one of the reasons why Watchmen was a dud. Everything minus the stuff dealing with the comedian was in the Watchmen movie. It was the closest thing to a one-to-one between comic book to movie. Moviegoers who were not comic book fans could not get into it. They did not understand it. It confused them. Now, if that is happening and they respected the source material the correct way, and even with that being said, the television series had a better following, and they were also one-to-one to the source material, except for certain things. They did tweak certain things. The movie studios changed actors and actresses accordingly. Did they match up to the comic book counterparts exactly? No. but they stuck to the story source material pretty well. The television show had a little bit more fanfare, and people started to understand it a lot more. But those television watchers of Watchmen did not become comic book readers as a result of it. I use that as an example to make certain that people have to understand that those audiences are completely different here in the United States, but over in Japan, the source material is always adhered to, and they build from the source material for the other stuff here. Now, the only one movie that I could think of that didn't match up to the manga and anime was Lupin the Third. There was a Lupin the Third live action movie, and I think I still have it over here in DVD, that did not match up to the manga and anime whatsoever. And it was kind of a dud. But it also goes to show you what happens when people take liberties. And that's part of the problem. The younger crowd is not, it's not really, the young crowd does not have interest in this stuff. And I use the quotation figures as far as interest. I believe they are interested in it. It's just that you can't give them an apple and tell it's an orange. And what do you mean by that, Joe? It's like you take them and go see a Spider-Man movie. And the story in the Spider-Man movie has Spider-Man doing all these different things that he doesn't do in the comic book. And then you go and be like, oh, we're going to go by the comic book story and we're going to get you a couple of Spider-Man books and this, that, and the other. And you give it to them and they start reading it, and then come back to you. It's like, well, hey, we just went to go see the Spider-Man movie, and Spider-Man not doing any of the stuff that he did in the Spider-Man movie. He's doing this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. I don't really care too much for that. That's going to become, that makes it a harder sell. Is it the publisher's fault? Not always, because why? The publisher controls the source material. Is it the movie producer's fault? Maybe, because the source material is there. They could have stuck with it. But what I truly feel is really at fault is people not being the bridge in between the two. To say where the movie fails and the comic book works, and where the comic book works, where the comic book doesn't work, but the movie is correct as far as how the storytelling is going about here. I mean, it's just as simple as that here. Well, people, I believe, we're almost at the tail end of our 2 hours here. See, Aaron got me going on a soapbox here, and I'm glad that he did. I'm kind of glad that he did get me on that soapbox a little bit, especially when it came to like the worth of what we love as far as comics is concerned here. If I was always used to looking at the financial side of things here, I would have gotten out of comics a long time ago. I wouldn't even got into creating my own books. But this medium is a great medium. Creating illustrated stories, creating illustrated adventures, doing books that most people may not even think of. Who would have thought that I would have success creating a pro wrestling book? That's something that people in the United States don't do. There's manga about it, but people in the United States don't really do a actual pro wrestling show the way we watch TV pro wrestling. I mean, it's weird that when you truly think about it, some people want to try to compare what I'm trying to do to like Ultimate Muscle and other like manga type stories. The only thing I'm trying to do is just make certain that it looks like, sounds like, and emulates what we get to see on Raw SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, or any other pro wrestling TV series here. What I'm doing with Amazonia is making certain that I'm telling a great story. What I'm going to end up doing with Legends of the Giantess Slayer, I'm going to explain a lot of different aspects of what I consider more along the lines of how can I put this, psychological fetishes, and try to put things in proper perspective. And Legends of the Giantess Slayer is kind of like my, not I wouldn't say a magnum opus, but it's kind of like my way of appreciating old school manga series that was called Ogenki Clinic. And for those who may have never read Ogenki Clinic, it was one of the few adult books that are out there that actually dealt with people's hang up dealing with sex. It was about a sex clinic that help cure people of their inhibitions. And people have all these different inhibitions dealing with that topic. And it was it was fun because it wasn't meant to be taken seriously. It was done more comedically. And because of that, I started to understand a lot of things of why people may have gotten hung up on a lot of these different aspects of life. Because, that aspect of life, once you get into the quote unquote dating and relationship ages here, especially whether you're married or not married, there's going to be frustration in that aspect here. And I think Ogenki Clinic handled it in the right way using comedy. Legends of the Giants and Slayer is not always meant to be comical, but it's not supposed to be like, oh, stringent and everything. It's going to be a little bit of everything in it. It's going to be some parts horror, sometimes comedic. It's just going to be what it is. It's a series of anthological stories being told, a chapter at a time. And sometimes those chapters are anywhere between 6 to 8 pages. And there's multiple stories running concurrently throughout the series here. So, it's kind of like those things that I look at to say, hey, we need to get to be more creative. I'm not saying don't create, suits and tights, capes and types and all this other stuff. We need superhero here. We need to get better at telling horror. We need to get better at telling romance. We need to get better at telling sports. We need to get better at telling stories where people truly live at here. That's one of the reasons why I don't really go on soapboxes too much here, because some of the soapboxes that I could go on would get me in trouble. I mean, seriously, people would try to cancel me because the way that I would explain it, it probably would offend some people, but at the same time, I'm going to prove a point. But nevertheless, it is almost 2 hours into it. It's time for me to say goodnight for the weekend. So, for those who are watching, live life, grow, and be well. I will be back here next Saturday. Yeah, I'll be back here next Saturday. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next Saturday. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to talk about next Saturday here. I don't want to go into the soapbox anymore, but it's almost at the point where I should go into at least this one soapbox here, dealing with character creation and world building. But no, I'm not going to do that because people need to write the way that they're going to write. I can't force them to write anything, but if we're going to see a change in American comics, we got to get out of certain mindsets here, especially when it comes to world building. especially when it comes to how we build those worlds. But that's a conversation for a different time and for the right audience to listen to. Anyway, the fight grow and be well. See you guys next week. And for those on the East Coast, be happy in the future here, because why? You're already on in Sunday. Everybody else, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we are out. Bye.